Of all the mysteries that humankind has encountered through the ages, none have had a greater pull on our imagination than the sea. And few individuals have had as strong a pull on our collective imagination as Walt Disney. Walt's deep appreciation for the power and grandeur of the seven seas was evident in many of the projects he guided throughout his career. Even Mickey Mouse's first sound film was the maritime classic Steamboat Willie. So deep was his love of things nautical, Walt decided to start his voyage on the Sea of Matrimony, literally, with a honeymoon cruise. That cruise created a special memory that forever kept the salt of the sea and the romance of the cruise close to his heart. Walt's passion for offshore adventures started an odyssey for the Disney Company that would span the seven seas and several decades. The destination, the Disney Magic. The adventure started with Disney Cruise Line selecting a team of cruise industry professionals to join the assembled Disney dream makers ready for the challenge. From the outset, the designers tried a variety of approaches that ranged from fanciful to futuristic.
At the beginning, it was quite challenging. We didn't really know exactly what the ship ought to look like. One idea they had was that, well, why don't you make it very futuristic? Disney is a very progressive company. And one design that they thought should be similar to some other ships, which is painted all white, but yet with some cutout, Mickey motif. But we felt it was not enough.
After a spirited competition among the design teams, the initial sketches were presented. Everyone agreed that these preliminary ideas were perhaps a bit too contemporary to be considered classic. But what direction should they take? The answer came from Disney chairman Michael Eisner.
When we were in the design phase of the Disney Magic, I kind of came out with the words, let's do a modern classic. Classic in the sense of sleek and ocean-going and romantic and Queen Mary, Queen Elizabeth-ish, and modern in the sense that it's, of course, got all the modern conveniences that a ship can have today.
The team worked diligently to help bridge the gap between the ships of old and the current concept of what a modern classic would look like. To accomplish this task, the team would borrow from the golden age of ocean liners. Michael's response to the final design was immediate and enthusiastic. That's it. Now that the ship's exterior was agreed upon, the next critical task was finding a shipbuilder to bring the inspired design to life. The charge for the shipbuilders was not an easy one. Build a ship that was comfortable, even at faster cruising speeds. It had to be seaworthy beyond measure, exceedingly secure under all conditions, and surpass all current quality standards. It was a tall order by anyone's estimation, but Disney's pursuit for a magnificent seafaring vessel was achieved by transforming complex engineering designs into simple yet elegant ship architecture. By the fall of 1996, every significant detail of the ship had been finalized, and a few weeks later, on October 21st, the keel of the Disney Magic was laid. The actual process of creating the Disney Magic would be anything but traditional for the cruise ship industry. The ship would be constructed in two parts through a process known as jumboization. One section from bow to midship would be assembled in the historic Ancona shipyard. The rear of the ship, or the stern, would be constructed at their facilities in Marghera, 100 miles to the north. The two halves of the ship would be assembled with a modular construction technique that would continually strengthen the ship hull as each component was added to the structure. From a ship that would come to weigh 83,000 gross tons and stand almost as long as the Empire State Building is tall, the exacting tolerances of less than 1/4 inch for each joint and weld would test the limits of the shipbuilder's craftsmanship and skill. After 6 months of non-stop construction, the Disney Magic's bow and stern were ready to meet for the first time. On April 11, 1997, the bow was completed and floated out to sea the next afternoon. After 42 hours, the bow reached the main canal in Venice that would take it the final distance to becoming complete. At 5 p.m. on April 14th, the two sections were finally within sight of each other at the Marghera shipyards. The stern, flooded with water, lay steady on the bottom of her berth as the bow slowly drew closer. After several tedious hours, the two halves were joined together perfectly, and the Disney magic finally became whole. After several more weeks of construction, the Disney magic was floated out to sea for the first time on May 13th to the spirited celebration of the many shipyard workers, plus a few familiar faces. Next came the first of many sea trials, tests that would push the ship to its seaworthy limits to ensure the structural stability and design specifications of the Disney magic. Finally, it was time for the shipyard to officially transfer ownership of the vessel to Disney Cruise Line. The Disney magic set sail from Venice and headed out to sea for the transatlantic crossing to its new home port in Florida. As the ship came within sight of Port Canaveral, a pod of dolphins were the first to greet her, much to the delight of the crew. Seafaring lore has it when dolphins ride alongside a new ship, it is said to be a sign of good luck for future voyages. After years of planning and months of intense construction, the Disney magic finally arrived in her home port. A few weeks later, the stage was set to christen the Disney magic, honoring the maritime tradition of selecting respected and accomplished people to be the godparents of the ship. Disney Cruise Line could think of none other than Roy E. Disney and his wife Patty to officially christen the Disney magic on July 30th, 1998. The Disney magic had now become an ocean-going cruise liner, the flagship of Disney Cruise Line. So what makes the Disney magic a modern classic? Certainly Disney artisans and craftspeople would capture the sense of romance and adventure that were the hallmark of the classic cruise lines. The design of the ship's interior spaces was led by Robert Tillberg of Tillberg Design AB of Sweden, one of the foremost ship architects in the world. And the final results of their partnership with Disney are as impressive functionally as they are aesthetically. Notice the massive chandelier that greets guests in the ship's entry hall. The Festa Venezia 1 was created by celebrated master artisan Dale Chihuly, whose breathtaking creations grace several U.S. embassies and Rockefeller Center. He and his team created the chandelier from more than 500 handmade trumpet-shaped elements. At least 5 different types of wood were worked into the design of the ship's 4 restaurants. Details like the intricate railings and grillwork or the use of exquisite marble and other distinctive materials evoke the heyday of the golden age of floating palaces. On board, attention to detail is evident everywhere, and classic splendor awaits discovery around every corner. Even the ship's exterior colors mirror color schemes of old, but with a subtle twist. Look closely, and they may remind you of a familiar character. In fact, special permission had to be obtained from several maritime organizations, including the Coast Guard, to change the traditional orange lifeboats to bright Mickey yellow. There's a lot that happens behind the scenes on the Disney magic that can be every bit as compelling as the wondrous detail of the ship's interior design. The Disney magic state-of-the-art bridge, for example. The nerve center of the ship, the bridge uses a sophisticated radar system with 4 independent scanners for varying weather conditions that send electromagnetic pulses to as far as 96 miles away. The ship also features an ARPA, or Automatic Radar Plotting Aid. This sophisticated collision avoidance system tracks the speed, course, and position of other ships. It can even determine how close other ships will pass. The bridge also houses the latest in stability monitoring, fire alarm, and detection equipment, plus dedicated emergency and distress global positioning satellite technology. The bow and stern thrusters, special propellers mounted in tubes within the ship's hull, allow the Disney magic to dock unassisted. In fact, the ship can turn a full 360 degrees while stopped in the water. The ship also has retractable stabilizers that extend from the ship's hull to reduce the sense of movement by as much as 90%. They act like the flaps of an airplane's wing to make the voyage as smooth and enjoyable as possible. There's so much to explore on board, you could spend an entire vacation just discovering the magic of the Disney magic.